that we're recording.
Yep, got it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the other side of addiction. I'm your host, Al Richards. Guys, we really have to apologize for the way things look. I know you guys are used to seeing a really nice studio. However, there are quite a few of our listeners that understand too that we are going through a move right now. We're still looking for a really nice location for us, one that works really good, that we can have even a better studio. The way we're looking at it is all this is happening for a reason. You know, sometimes God closes doors for a reason because there's another one that we're going to open that is going to be much better, right? It's like make a deal, right? You got the three doors and we pick door number 2 and we open it up and it's like, oh, we want a boat and a car and a truck and a ski-doo and all this fun stuff. So anyways, hey guys, today we've got this topic. You can't be bitter and get better. And for those of us who have gone through addiction, I know you guys understand it because I do, right? We can't be bitter about our past. We can't be bitter of the relationships that we had because when we were in the depths of our addiction, we we ruined a ton of relationships, not meaning to, but we do it. And we have to realize too that we can't be bitter against those people or even against ourselves because we know that was not us. And the other people are doing what they can to protect themselves, right? So we have a really kick butt guest. This guy has been waiting, I think, like 2 months to be on the show. So I'm glad the date is finally here. I do wish we could have been in the studio for this, but by golly, the show is going to go on. We're going to make it happen. Kirk, thank you so much for being here.
Al, thanks for having me, man. Uh,
Absolutely.
and we connected through Jimmy Lane, who was on your show. And I've known Jimmy since I was 8 years old. And man, the transformation he's made, and it's just so good to be able to I talk to him a couple times a week, and it's such a great thing that we can talk recovery together now. So
Well, you guys, Jimmy's an inspiration, and the majority of our guests are. And I know you're going to be an inspiration today as well with your story. You know, I've said this on the show many times, Kurt. I'm very honored and blessed. I get emotional talking about this because it means so much to me. I'm very blessed to be able to do a show with some of the most amazing people I've ever met my whole life. And I'm getting close to 60. I'm still young. However, just here, the journey I've been on since 2009 has put me in this spot. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be today. And I'm just so grateful to God for putting me on this path, right? And for putting me through all the crap that I went through, as well as what I put up with my wife during her addiction. So let our listeners know just a little bit more about yourself. And I know you spent some time in the military, so thank you for your service.
well,
Greatly
thank you,
appreciate it.
Al. Thank you. Yeah, our struggles are our gifts, right?
Yeah, right. That's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
I grew up in a small town called Delton, Michigan. Come from a divorced family. I never, I played sports growing up. I was a good student. I drank twice my freshman year. My stepdad grounded me all summer, so I didn't drink again until my senior year. And I ended up joining the Army Infantry March 4th of 2008, and that's really when my drinking started again. I thought I joined the military, I could start drinking. Um, so June 12th of 2008, I left for basic training, Fort Benning, Georgia, and graduated from there September 26th, 2008. And by December 1st of 2008, I was deployed to Iraq. And let me back up a little bit. When I got out of basic training, I was drinking every day that I could until I left for Iraq. Um,
What changed that, Kirk, for you to do that when you only drank a couple times before that?
I think my addiction was manifesting in other ways, maybe in high school.
Okay.
Trying to fit in. I had a lot of friends, but I never really felt connected to anybody. I always had that void inside of me. I did smoke a little pot throughout high school, and I guess I got so sick the second time I drank and grounded for so long that scared me enough not to drink all through high school. So,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah. Um, and when I was in Iraq, that's when my addiction really started to pick up, actually. I was huffing air duster when I wasn't on patrol. I was drinking Robitussin, robo tripping as they call it.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I actually had my roommate uh, told on me for huffing dust off, and I got an Article 15, which is basically loss of rank and extra duty. Um, so I had to go on these 12-hour patrols, and after my patrols, I'd have 5 hours of extra duty, and I lost all my rank and a third of my pay. Um, sorry.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
Um, but anyways, yeah. So from December 2008 till June 2009, I was in Iraq, and then I was granted a 2-week leave period. Um, and when I got home, within 3 or 4 hours, I was at the strip club with the buddies because that's what I thought you're supposed to do as a vet. And I had a buddy of mine bring me out to the parking lot and said, "Here, snort this line," and it was cocaine. I was no longer drunk, and I was off to the races, man. I mean, I had probably 8, 9 grand in the bank account, and within a few weeks, all that money was gone on cocaine and on a number of other non-holy things.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I was supposed to go back to my unit, um, but instead of going back, I flew to Atlanta, and it's just like this vital moment in my life where I've noticed I've had these vital moments where I could go left or I could go right, and I could have gone, maybe got hemmed up for the drinking or for the cocaine and dropped dirty for some drugs and go back to my unit, but I just kept walking straight to the cabs. Um, Went to a Hilton hotel for a week, and I went AWOL. I did absent without leave. And so I hopped on a Greyhound back up to Dalton from Atlanta. And for the next month, man, I didn't have money for cocaine anymore, and I really dived into the Xanax. And I ended up my stepdad growing up was a dentist, so I knew he had narcotics in his house. So about a month into me going AWOL, I I grew up there, so I know the garage code key, and I opened the garage up and went in there and stole some Xanax and some Vicodin and a number of other things. And it didn't take the cops long to find out that it was me. So they came to my girlfriend's house at the time, and they didn't arrest me for that night, but they knew I was AWOL. So the next day they came and picked me up from my girlfriend's house, and then I spent my first 2 weeks in jail waiting for the federal police to come pick me up.
Wow. Holy cow. And it's crazy. I did a talk at a local high school here on Monday, and I was telling the students that you never know what one puff of a joint or a bong or whatever, however they smoke it nowadays, I don't know,
Yeah.
that one line or taking that one pill or even that one drink, right, where it'll take you. And I didn't start smoking pot till probably 2 weeks before I graduated high school, right?
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. And then I went out of high school and started working construction. Now in construction, man, everybody smoked pot, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you did on your lunch break. You smoke a joint and then you had lunch because lunch tasted great after smoking a joint, right?
Yeah.
Because you had the munchies. And then you went back to work. And when I started traveling around, I mean, we would smoke a joint going into work. We would smoke a joint at lunch. We would smoke a joint going back into the warehouse. And then we would smoke a joint on the way home. And then we would smoke more when we got home. And I remember the first time I had my first line of cocaine, not realizing where it was going to take me years down the road. Right. Because I ended
Yeah.
up quitting construction, got hired on at a manufacturing place. And I had a lot of responsibility, especially after I came back from Kentucky, because I was transferred to Kentucky for 3 years, then came back to Salt Lake. And my gosh, man, the load that they put on me. And one day I was at a party, kind of same thing, right? And some friends said, "Hey, you want a line of cocaine?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't tried that for years. Heck yeah, let's do it."
Yeah,
Before I knew it, I was doing it every Friday and Saturday night, and I did it consistently for 8 years.
the clockwork. Yeah,
Right? And it all started because of the first time I tried it, because I loved it, right? I fell in love with it.
yeah, yeah. I really did too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's kind of where it took you, right? I mean, gosh, for you to go through 5 or 6 grand within a couple weeks, man, you were partying.
Yeah, I mean the first bag was, $800, man. So I was,
Holy
off
cow.
off to the races, man. Yeah. Totally insane in my mind. Total psychosis, really looking back on it.
Yeah.
Just no care for my family or friends, and just a tornado, just a warpath, and just tearing anything up in my way. Um,
Huh. What do you feel Kirk took you to that point? I mean, I can I can't say I understand because I don't because I've not been there. I just couldn't imagine what being deployed to Iraq, and I don't know what kind of circumstance it is, but I'm sure that's just a huge shock.
luckily I was in no firefights. I didn't have to shoot at anybody or got shot at,
Okay.
but it is stressful, But my disease was it was manifesting before I was even in Iraq. Um, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was bitter towards my parents, towards my stepdad. I wanted to blame everybody else for my problems and wouldn't look inward. And I think me drinking and doing the air duster and stuff like that was a way for me to not have to look at myself.
Yeah. And I believe all of us fall into that category, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether we fall under the drugs and alcohol for the addiction or whether we fall under with porn or gambling or gaming or I mean, gosh, there's so many different types of addiction, right?
Yeah, and that's how I know if my disease has been active, because you don't have to be using to know that your disease is active. If I start watching a little bit more porn, or the sugar intake goes up, or if I'm giving in to urges to not go to the gym, or if I don't want to meditate and I stop meditating, it's like that just is a domino effect into other areas of my life. If I start giving into every urge to eat unhealthy food, what are the next urges I start giving into?
Yeah. So you feel like you have like the addictive personality, right? That you can go a different direction pretty quickly if you're not paying attention to where you're at.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that does happen with the majority of us.
Yeah.
And I was telling this class that I was speaking to on Monday, I'm like, before you realize you have a problem, the talons, just imagine the talons of an eagle or a hawk, how sharp they are and the grasp that they have. Before you realize it, they're in so freaking deep.
Yeah.
Man, it's so hard to get out of it.
I mean, and honestly, Al, I didn't even know I had an addiction problem until 2015. So from 2008 till 2015, I didn't even realize I had a drug problem.
Really? So
Yeah.
you didn't even see it.
No, I didn't, and I ended up going to the brig in Puget Sound to the state of Washington for my AWOL, for going AWOL in the military. And I ended up going there for 6 months. I wanted to be a preacher when I was there. It was kind of like a calm in between storms. I was sober after, one hell of a year.
Yeah.
And
Kind
then,
of fell in the eye of the hurricane then, basically.
yeah, yes, sir. And when I got back from Puget Sound, I had to turn myself in for the home invasion charge. And, 2010 was a really rough year for me because I was in the brig from 2009 until 2010. And then, and then I had to turn myself in for that. In 2010, I mean, I tried to kill myself. I was prescribed Ambien. I thought I was staying at my mom's at the time. I said, I'm going to take 6 of these Ambien. I'm going to turn my car on in the garage, and I'm just going to go out jamming out. And I would have been successful, but my mom woke up at like, 3:34 in the morning and came and found me.
Wow. And there's been so many good people who have lost their lives to suicide due to addiction, right? And I'm kind of like you, Kirk. I didn't look at myself as an addict either. Really, up until probably a few months ago. And it's the first time I really came out and started sharing my story instead of sharing my wife's story, right? With her battle with alcoholism. And the reason why I didn't look at it as an addiction, because it was only a weekend thing. It was only every Friday and Saturday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Only for 8 years, but it was only 2 days a week, right? There's 7 days. I'm good the other five.
Yeah.
I'm not missing work. I'm doing my job. I'm doing the things that I have to do around the house. I'm paying my bills. I didn't skip bills to buy my cocaine. I made sure my bills were paid. However, what little teeny extra money I had, I bought cocaine. And even
Yeah.
if I didn't have that extra money, as addicts, we find a way, right? We will find a way to come up with the money. And I had a guy, luckily, that it could be fronted to me. We
Yeah.
had such a great relationship. If I didn't have the money, he's like, "Yeah, no worries. When do you think you can take care of it?" And I'd tell him, and he's like, "All right, no worries." And people picture drug dealers on TV carrying the guns, and if you don't pay them, they're bashing down your door and they're attacking your family. And I'm not saying it's not like that, but I was friends with my dealer. We were really good friends. We went fishing together, hung out together, went to parties together.
Yeah.
But yeah, in my eyes, I didn't have a problem.
No, no. And I mean, you know what? It took me to find out that I had a problem. And this is after, 2010, I did the brig, I did probation. I got 2 years of probation for that home invasion charge. Um, but it didn't take till 2015 when I told my younger brother, hey, man, I'm going to keep mom busy. You go in her purse and steal some Adderall out of her purse. And he got caught. And that's when I had to take a look at myself and what kind of big brother am I? He must have been 21 at the time. And, that's when I first got myself into a real 12-step program. It was a 3-month program. And that's when I, first, because my first AA meeting was at the brig in 2009. And I didn't hear anything that had to say, those old guys probably thought this kid's screwed, man.
Yeah.
I thought it was just sharing drinking stories.
Yeah.
And another big part of my story too, even before 2015, is I went to the psych ward. I've been to the psych ward 30, 40, probably 50 times, man. And the very first time I went to the psych ward, this is 2010. My girlfriend broke up with me. My family didn't want nothing to do with me. And I'm driving down M43. It's a road through my town. And my car ran out of gas in front of a church. And I thought, well, I went in there and sweet talked these people for some gas money. And I thought I was playing them, but little did I know I was playing myself because God just threw the answer right in my face, man. This is what you need. Maybe not necessarily a Christian God, but you need a higher power. And what I do, I just got the gas money and I went to the psych ward for the first time. And then, 10 years after that, on and off. I mean, there was times I was on 6, 7 different psych meds at a time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the thing I did have a resentment on the psych wards. It's like the one thing that really bothers me about the psych wards is you come in there strung out on alcohol or drugs, and they talk to you, that day or the next day, and you still have all these symptoms from the drugs you're on. So they put you on more drugs from the symptoms that you have from these other drugs. And that doesn't make sense to me, man. It's like you got to let someone sober up for a couple weeks before you start putting them on more meds.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that. Uh, gosh, that's something that's something that could be like a quick YouTube video or TikTok video, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I just did one the other day that it was probably about 38 seconds long. It's like, why is it that we leave the life and the health of our loved ones in the hands of insurance companies?
Yeah.
They determine how long an individual stays in recovery.
Yeah.
Just depends how much money they want to fork out, right? What the hell do they know about addiction and addiction recovery? Nothing.
It's all about insurance, man. Because I mean, I know when I've had jobs, I have private insurance. Pine Rest, it's like a big. It's up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's like a big. They have rehab type stuffs and psych wards. And if you have private insurance, man, all you have to do is call them, give them your insurance card. You go right up there. They talk to you for 5-10 minutes, and you're in the door. If you don't have insurance, you have to go to the ER, and it's like a 12-hour process.
Right?
It's all about the insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about the money. And I just want our listeners to know too, it's not all recovery centers are that way, right? However, there are quite a few. They're there for the money, not for the people. And we're very blessed here in Salt Lake. We've got a few here that are amazing, and a couple of them that we are pretty good friends with here on the other side of addiction. It doesn't cost a person a dime, not one penny. It
And
doesn't
you
it doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime, nothing.
And
And
honestly, the better rehabs I've been to are the ones that are the lower down ones that had Medicaid to go to.
right?
Chester Ray Center was Medicaid funded. And that was, I mean, man, after that rehab, I learned so much about the 12 steps because I had gone to a rehab in 2010. I had overdosed, and I actually, rest in peace to Jody Tyner. He was one of my wrestling coaches and a volunteer firefighter. And I had a 96 Grand Prix that I sold for 100 or for 1,400 milligram fentanyl patches. And I duct taped it to my arm, and I had a bunch of Vicodin, and I was crushing them up and put them in my coffee. And I thought I was funny. I got creamer in my coffee. Um, I went to bed at my girlfriend's house at the time, and I woke up with, I mean, they were pumping my stomach. I had the thing up my nose.
Oh,
And
geez.
yeah, and luckily Jody Tyner, man, God rest his soul, he saved me because he told me that they thought they lost me. They lost me for, a couple minutes. Um, I don't really know where I was going with that necessarily, but oh,
Well,
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, after that, my probation officer, because I was on the probation for the home invasion, wanted me to go to KPEP. It's like a halfway house. And I thought, whoa, I don't want to do that. So
yeah.
my mom had tried to get me into a rehab. So I called her and I got into the rehab that she wanted me to go to. And that place was called Narcanon. And I was there for about a year, 6 months in the program, and then I worked there for about 6 months.
Holy cow. So when you put those patches on and put that stuff in your coffee, did you do that on purpose? I mean, to basically take your life, or it was just like, man, I'm gonna be wasted real soon here.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of because I'm a fiend and them fentanyl patches don't necessarily kick in right away. So there's been a lot of times I'm lucky to still be alive today that I might take more than I need because I don't give it the proper time to even kick in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That I can understand because I watched my wife do that, right, with her drinking. You
yeah,
know, she would go shoplift a bottle or whatever because it got to the point where no one would give her money.
yeah,
How she did not get caught shoplifting liquor from a liquor store. All our liquor stores here in Utah are state owned. They
yeah.
don't like people taking money from them, right? They
No,
like
they
taking
don't.
your
No, the
money,
government don't like
but they
that.
don't the other way around. It's not good, right?
Yeah,
If she would have ever got caught, she could have been in some big trouble. However, she drank so fast because she was trying to get that feeling that she always, that she got at the first part of her addiction, right?
to fill that void. Yeah,
To fill that void. But what people don't realize until it's too late is we never get that same feeling again.
no,
It's only a one. This is the only way I can think of saying it. It's like the first time you have sex, right?
yeah.
It's like, whoa. And then after that, I'm not saying that it's not exciting. However, it's not that first time. And it's the
Yeah, it's
same
like it
way.
gets you up and then you come down and then you go up, but not quite as high as the next time. And then it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
gradually,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, the ladder that you're going up, you go up less and less runs
yeah,
that every single time. And before you know it, you're down at the bottom, right?
yeah,
Where the majority of us end up.
yeah, yep,
You mentioned suicide earlier here, Kurt. I mean, we get to a point in our life where I think we're just kind of fed up, right? We're sick and tired of being sick and tired, which that phrase has been out there for umpteen years. And we've had other guests on our show who basically did the same thing. I mean, I got a good friend who I work with. His name is Cap, just a phenomenal individual. And he's in long term recovery. And he was telling me the story about him wanting to commit suicide. He literally talked around in the chamber, put the gun to his head, and pulled the trigger. And it went click.
Wow.
It went click. And he just sat there and he couldn't believe it. He's like, how is this possible? And he started doing some more thinking. He's like, this is not supposed, my life's not supposed to end. That gun should have fired, right?
Yeah, bullet always tells the
Should have
truth.
freaking fired. And it didn't. And it woke him up in a way. And me being on the other side of my wife's addiction in 2019, I was coming home from a networking group. And I couldn't handle coming home anymore. I didn't want to come home anymore. I'd go to a networking group and I'm being me, energetic, hugging people, smiling, loving what I'm doing. And as soon as I left, I would just be completely freaking drained. And I was actually diagnosed with a small form of PTSD. I couldn't figure out why my emotions were freaking all over the place all the time. And it's because of what was happening at home. And I had decided I'm going to go home and get my 9mm. I'm going to go up to the mountains. I'm going to find me a spot and I'm done. I'm not even the one battling the addiction. It was my wife. However, that's how bad a lot of our loved ones, that's how bad they get it, right? They become addicted to their loved one's addiction, just like what I did.
Yeah.
We start getting dragged down that freaking same rabbit hole that our loved one is going down.
And I think it's harder to deal with someone else's addiction than my own addiction because I had to deal with my brother's addiction, and it was harder to deal seeing him like me and seeing him go through that. So it's easy to be the selfish addict using, not that
Yeah,
it's easy, but you know what I mean. It's easier, you know what you're doing, and it's harder to see a loved one go through it for sure.
yeah. Now, is this the same 21-year-old brother that you asked to go steal some?
Yeah, this is Connor, man. Yeah, my little
Wow,
brother Connor.
holy
And
cow.
I guess I how to get into this. I mean, my brother, he's 3.5 years younger than me. He was born November 11th, 1993. And I mean, he was my best friend growing up, man. We'd play football in the yard. We were just inseparable. I taught the kid how to ride a bike. And when I left for the army, that relationship dissolved because I got caught up in my addiction. And, we still got along, but it was, I have a lot of regret there, because he really looked up to me. And I was a pretty good kid throughout school. And then I really went the other way with it. Honestly, when I joined the army, I wanted to be a detective when I got out. And I
Wow.
always joke I kind of went the opposite way with that one. But yeah, man, I lost my brother in December 11th, 2020. He passed away from a fentanyl overdose.
Oh my gosh. Holy cow.
Um, and
Wow.
leading up to that, that's why you have to keep doing the things that got you to where you're at. Because my brother, he moved in with me in 2019. Now I was homeless in 2018, and I got myself out of homelessness, got me an apartment January 2019, and my brother asked if he could come stay with me one night in 2019, and I said, sure, come on over, man. And little did I know, my mom had called me a couple of days later and said, "Hey, is your brother there?" I said, "Yeah, why?" Because she had kicked him out because his addiction was starting to get pretty bad. He was a heavy drinker. So
Yeah.
my brother stayed with me in 2019 for a few months, and I had to kick him out a couple times, and it was really hard for me to do that. But I knew it's what had to be done because sometimes we think we're helping a loved one, we're really just enabling them.
Yeah, you nailed it, Kirk. I had to throw my wife out a number of times. And it's so flipping hard. I mean, I can't imagine being a parent and have to throw your kids out, right? To me, that's a whole different ball court, you know. However, I'd come home and she'd be so wasted, and of course it was like walking into World War II, and just it was a
Yeah.
battlefield, and I'm just like, just get the hell out, and I'd kick her out, or I'd call the cops. A lot of times I'd threaten to call the cops and that would scare her, so she'd leave, thinking I was going to have peace, right? Because she's no longer here in the house. Hell, I was usually up for hours and hours and hours, usually only a couple hours worth of sleep, because now she's out on the streets. She's
Yeah.
5'2", weighs 115 pounds, and she's drunk as shit. Is she going to run across the wrong person? Right? Is
Yeah.
someone going to grab her? Is someone going to put her in their car and go rape her, or kill her, or who knows, or hold her hostage? You know, and then I'd be up all freaking night long. And then, of course, every time the phone rang, it scared the living shit out of me,
Oh
especially if it was a
yeah.
number that I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really puts us in a dark spot, and it's but you are so right too, though, Kurt, because when we allow them to stay in our space, we are enabling them. So we have to have our boundaries, just like the person who's going through addiction has to have their boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That us on the other side, or those on the other side, are not allowed to cross, because
Yeah.
again, they don't understand. So it's almost kind of like putting two magnets together. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. Two north. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yep. Man, so where did life take you after all this? Because you said, you ran out of gas and you were by a church, and you ended up going to a psych ward, and you were there 20 or 30 times. Where did life start taking you from there?
I mean, it was a comfort zone. And I mean, in between the psych ward visits, from 2012 to 2013, I did construction work at Tustin's Asphalt Ceiling. My second year, I got my own crew running an infrared patching truck. And then 2013, I got a job at Stryker. 2012 to 2013, I did the Tustin's thing. It's a seasonal. In the wintertime in 2013, I got a job at Stryker Medical. They make you know, the yellow stretchers and stuff.
Okay.
And I started powder coating yellow stretchers. It was a really good job. Tripped on acid one night, didn't call, no show. They don't play. I got fired. 2014, I moved up to Grand Haven where my dad's at. I got a job running a CNC saw, and I was doing really good there. And they started training me on a lathe until, I got so messed up on psych meds and drinking, I got fired from that job. And then
Hmm.
2015, I went back to Tustin's. They let me back. And that's when 2015, that's when, and in between all this, I mean, there's 3 or 4 psych ward visits every year, trying this drug, trying that drug, playing a psychiatrist that I don't know what benzos are. And, but I mean, and I would lie, man. I would tell these psychiatrists I'm hearing voices and this and that because I just wanted to get, it's like a comfort zone. The psych ward was like a comfort zone, man. Food, and I don't know what is almost like I got institutionalized being at the psych ward. I mean, there was a point in my life where I was like, I just want to spend the rest of my life in the state hospital, man.
Yeah. Well, you got all the comforts, plus you could still kind of get high, right? Because of the
Yeah,
drugs that they give you.
exactly.
And you're safe. You're not on the streets.
Yeah. And in 2015, man, I went to that. That's one thing I give myself credit for. I've always been knew I needed to get help and knew I had potential and that I have a lot of strengths. So in 2015, when I got into that 90-day rehab, it was like a 3-phase program. And the first phase is basically like a 4-step. There's all these questions and there's 3 parts to each question, like describe a time where using drugs endangered yours or someone else's life. Um, and then the second phase is final letters. You have to write a letter to yourself, to your higher power, to your addiction, and then 2 people you're choosing. And I did my mother and my brother at the time. And then the final step of that program is you get to go out and look for a job. And I got a job I went and filled out an application the first day that I could leave the rehab. and I got a job at Menards. It was a 2.5 mile walk, man. And I was motivated every day walking there. And this is like January in the snow. Started there part-time, got promoted to assistant manager of paint, and then within a couple months, I was the assistant manager receiving in the outside yard until slowly but surely, man, you start feeling better. I stopped doing the meetings. I stopped working the steps and started going to the psych ward, relying on the psych meds. And I lost that job.
Man, it sounds like the same cycle my wife went through, right?
Yeah.
Exact same thing. And I remember coming home from things from different events or that whatever job I was doing at the time, and she'd still be home in bed and I'd get so upset. And I remember her telling me so many times, the hell's it harming you? It's not doing anything to you. It's like, the hell if it's not.
Yeah.
I need your help financially, right? It is
Yeah.
affecting me. And we used to get in huge fights over it. Because she's like, I ain't hurting you. It's like, yeah, you freaking are. And you're
Yeah.
hurting yourself, right? Especially when she'd get to the point where, she was drinking at work. She'd go out in the parking lot and take a few sips and then go back in. And it's
Yeah.
crazy where those addictions, where it takes us, right? Something that we, in our right mind, there's no way in hell we would do. And then we end up doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nothing good ever comes out of it. I don't know if you know my story, Kirk, but I lost my job of 24 years because my weekend cocaine use. Hadn't been drug tested in probably like 15 years. And then got drug tested. And of course, when you're doing cocaine every weekend, man, it's in your system all the time. It's not like using it on a weekend and then all it takes is about 4 or 5 days to get out of your system. It
It's
never
building
had a
up.
chance to get out of my system, right? Because I was doing it again within 4 to 5 days, right? Or six
Yeah.
days, however long it was. And man, it was like having the rug ripped right out from underneath me. My whole life that I knew for 24 years and worked my butt off to work my way up into management and making really, really good money was lost because I had to snort lines on the weekend and
Yeah.
drink, right? And it was that balancing act. And the sad thing is doing it behind my wife's back. She knew I was drinking. She didn't know I was doing the other stuff.
Yeah. That was your release from all the stress, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've really done some soul searching too since then, Kirk. And man, I have found out that it just wasn't the stress from work. That's what I was saying it was. And yes, it definitely had a part of it.
It's a convenient excuse, right?
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I had 43 employees underneath me and I had a ton of responsibility,
That is
lots of
stressful.
projects. And it was my release, right? Because when I got offered it at that party, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not thinking about work. This is freaking great. You know,
Yeah.
it's like if I do this stuff all the time, I can actually start enjoying my weekends instead of stressing all weekend just to go back to work on Monday and have more stress. I started really doing some soul searching and started realizing the stuff I was covering up from my past, right? The guilt of leaving my daughters when they were still fairly young to go to Kentucky for this job. And it was because their mom and I was going through a nasty divorce and I didn't want them around all the turmoil. I didn't see them for 2 years. So I had that guilt on me. I had guilt of cheating on my first wife, something that I swore up and down. There is no way in heck when I get in a relationship, I would ever cheat on my spouse. And I did. And I've apologized to her since then. I grew the balls to say I am so sorry for what I did because there's no excuse. I
No.
made that choice. I did it.
And
And
learn mistakes are wisdom, man. If we make a
right.
mistake and we learn from it, that's wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why
And
we
those are
make
like them
them.
Homer Simpson moments. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't, I remember
Yeah.
when I did this, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, I said that something stupid. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
And that's why that 4 step's so important, man. It helps you get over that guilt somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Cause I mean, I think the majority of us have some type of trauma, childhood trauma or turmoil or something. You know, a parent leaves, or we were sexually assaulted, or we just didn't come from a strong family background. There's not a lot of love, or our parents had some kind of addiction. I mean, there's so many, right? I mean, if we really sat down and thought about it, we could probably name hundreds of things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's why it was important for me to get a different vantage point because I used to really resent and be bitter towards my old stepdad, which I get along with now. But I had to look at it from a different vantage point. Like, why was he the way he was? And look at him as a child and how he was raised and who, you have to just get a different vantage point. And maybe, at the end of the day, a lot of people have done a lot of wrong to me, but I've done a lot of wrong to other people. So at the end of the day, I have to just own where I'm at in life and move forward one day at a time, one meditation at a time, one rep at the gym at a time. So,
Yeah.
and one breath at a time sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty good at that, taking big heavy sighs. I mean, seriously, yeah. A lot of times we'll be driving down the road and I'll just do a huge one and my wife will go, "What was that for?" And I'm like, "Just because, whatever was going on in my mind, I knew at that time I just needed to inhale it and then fricking get rid of it. Just exhale it out and let it pass."
Yeah. And breathing is not talked enough, I feel like, in recovery sometimes, because I
Yeah.
really didn't learn about breathing techniques and meditation until the end of 2021. My good buddy Nick Canner, man, he's like a brother, really good friend. I love the guy. And he introduced me into Wim Hof. Have you ever heard of Wim Hof?
I have not.
He does like the polar dips and he's got some breathing exercises where you could do like 30 deep inhales and then you blow all the air out and then you hold your breath for 60 seconds to 90 seconds. You breathe it back in, hold it for 15, and then you do another 30 and you do like 3 rounds of this, man, and it's really good healing medicine, something to look into. I do
Holy
that every
cow.
day, man.
And what do they call it again?
It's called Wim Hof. WIMHOF. Wim Hof.
Wim Hof.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's breathing exercises.
Yeah, I could even send you the link, one of the easy ones to do on YouTube. He does have an app as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, it's so crazy because out of all the hundreds of people that I've interviewed, Kurt, it's like everyone's story's the same, yet their journeys are different. And I remember about the first 3, 4 months of when we started this show, I was thinking, how the heck am I going to continue to be able to do this? Because people are telling the same stories almost, right?
Yeah.
And it took probably another month or 2 months. I don't know how long. It could have been less, could have been more. And I started realizing, no, the stories are kind of the same, but everyone's journey is so flippin' different. And it's the journey of their addiction, but more than not, it's their journey of recovery, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some just got slapped right upside the head with a shovel and they just woke up one day and went, "Yeah, enough's enough.
Yeah.
I'm tired of all this turmoil in my life, and I'm the one that's causing it," right?
Yeah.
Others get that spiritual awakening. My wife said the last time that she was in jail, and this was really close to about the time she started going into her long-term recovery. She said that God came and visited her. And when she told me this, I called BS on it, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I've heard this like a half a dozen or a dozen times. You're not going to fool me with this anymore. And she's
Yeah.
like, no, no, I'm serious. And he basically told me, if I continue down this road, I will no longer be living. And it's the first time she told me that. And what did she do as soon as she got out of jail? She got drunk. Well, apparently you didn't take it very serious, right?
Yeah.
However, that drunk for her was so bad. It's the first time that she heard voices.
Mm.
It's the first time that she was seeing things. And it took me some time to go out because she was out on the lawn of our apartment complex. And I kept going out there and checking on her and asking her, "Are you ready to go to detox?" And the best I could understand her was just like, she didn't want to go. When she finally told me she wanted to go, Kirk, seriously, when I looked into her eyes, I saw death. Her eyes were just glossed over. They were gray. She has hazel eyes. They were just like gray. And when I was taking her up to the LDS hospital to the detox center, when I dropped her off, I'm like, this will be the last I see my wife alive. She did not listen to what God told her. She will be gone. And I tell you what, every time that phone rang, when I got, my cell phone rang,
Stomach just
my
dropped.
rear end would just fricking pucker because I'm
Yeah.
like, here it is. Here's the call, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And luckily it didn't happen. And I'm so grateful for that. So our journeys of a recovery are definitely different. We all have our own little journey. However, we all end up in the same spot again.
We're all in different rivers going to the same ocean almost.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of like kind of like the logging company. Yeah, they get all the logs in a river and then they shoot them down into the pond, right? Before they
Yeah.
gather them all up. And here we are all in this pond. And that's another thing I love about doing these shows is meeting individuals like yourself and Jimmy and so many others, because I look at it now and it's because of a guest, and she said this: those who are in long-term recovery and they're out there and they're fighting that battle every day, because that battle will be with them the rest of their lives. The talons
Yeah.
may not be as deep, but they're still in you.
Hmm.
And all it takes is one slip and those talons go in even deeper than what they were before. All those that are in the recovery, in my eyes, and I get emotional talking about this sometimes, they're God's angels. They're out there now holding their hand out and going, "Are you struggling? I've been there. Let me help you." Right? If
Yeah.
you'll just listen to what I say and be here with me, let me help you through that journey. And I like to say too that, when Jesus first started going around and walking and getting his name out there, every one of his disciples, he didn't pick the perfect ones.
No.
He picked the ones that had all types of issues, right? Criminals,
Ones that have
one,
been tested. Yeah.
yeah, ones that were tested. One was a prostitute. I mean, it was the imperfect ones. And that's who he's picking here on this earth, is the imperfect ones to now go out there and save others.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So that's my little spiritual
Yeah,
thing
I like it, man.
there.
And I can relate to your wife with hearing the voices and after my brother passed away in 2020, man, that day I had Adderall and Xanax. I threw it away. I smoked pot just for a few months. I was a manager at Walgreens at this time, and slowly but surely, man, I started getting back into the cocaine, sniffing it, and then using, methamphetamines. And it brought me to a point where I quit Walgreens, just walked out. And September, it must have been like September 10th, man, I started actually hearing voices after years and years of lying to the doctors about, I've been hearing voices, la la la, just to get into the psych ward. I actually started hearing voices, and I really didn't know what to do, man. I called my buddy Nick Hanner. Um, and it was hard for him to understand what I was going through. I drove myself to the hospital for the last time, but I was not trying to get into the psych ward. I just needed to be somewhere safe because I had these voices telling me to do bad things.
Wow.
And I got myself into a three week rehab after that. And since then, man, it's been a grind on it's not easy. Life's hard. You can do it the hard way or the harder way. It's not really, I wish I could say it was easy to get up. Guys at work, you're always in a good mood and happy. I'm like, yeah, well, you don't see that I wake up hour and a half before work and meditate for 20 minutes, and then I pray, and then I journal, and then I go to the gym 5 days a week. I go to, a couple, 2, 3, 4 meetings a week.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work, man. It's the harder way.
Yeah. And so many of our guests say it's not easy, like you just said, Kurt. However, they also say, but it's worth it,
It's way worth it, man.
right?
Yeah.
Because their lives aren't in turmoil now, right?
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, even though there's certain things that stay on people's records, and sometimes, if they get pulled over, the cops still look at them as that same individual, right? They're protecting themselves as well. I'm not bad mouthing the cops because I'm a huge back our blue type person.
Yeah.
However, society has a way of throwing it right back in our face, going, you made a mistake, and we're going to make sure
Yeah. Nana,
that
nana,
the
boo,
rest of
boo.
your
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
Which we're the only country that I understand that does that. Other
Yeah.
people, when they do their time or they pay for whatever it is, it's pulled off their record in other countries. So they can get their lives going again, right? Not
Yeah.
here in the United States, man. We hold that over their heads the rest of their freaking lives.
Yeah.
And it's a mistake because my belief is that draws people right back to where they were at. Because they're like, if no one's going to give me a chance to get my life on track, even though it is my choice, right? But I still need help from the outside. I still have to have a job. I still have to have a place to live. If I can't get any of those, I might as well go back to using and living on the streets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, our system is definitely broken, and I've said that a lot on a lot of other previous shows. However, like you said, man, it's worth it. What I went through with my stuff, what I went through with my wife's addiction, both of us today, we we're still going through our struggles as a couple, right? We've gone through so much together, and there's so many things we've got to repair.
Yeah.
We've lost ourselves in so many different ways. Good news is we're still working on it. We're still improving our relationship. And we're just so grateful to be around the people that we're around.
And you got to be grateful, man. There's no growth without struggle. It's just like I see you work out. If you don't tear them
Um,
muscles down a little bit, they're never going to grow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
and
met.
that's the thing about staying grateful too, man. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was he kind of going through it. He wants more in his life. I said, well, if the universe or God or Jesus is gonna, do you think just as a parent and you have a little kid and they're not grateful for what they have, you're gonna give them anything else? You got to be grateful for what you have if you want to manifest anything else in your life.
Yeah, and that is so true. You nailed it. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We definitely got to be grateful for what we have, and it's the small things, right?
Yeah.
And and I've known people. Matter of fact, my wife and I, we had the honor to go to a place downtown Salt Lake. It's called the Other Side Academy.
Okay. I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah, they are phenomenal over there. Dave DeRocher, Robin Sims, all their team. I mean, just awesome individuals. All of them have gone through the battle of addiction. All of them. A lot of them homeless. A lot of them did prison time. And a friend of ours, Curtis Marsh, who has also been on the show and been a guest co-host on the show, he was asked to go out and do a talk in front of all the students out there. And he called me up and he goes, hey, would you and your wife like to be my guests? Would love to have you come out. And I'm like, oh yeah, jump on this in a heartbeat. First of all, I get to go down to a place where I love the people down there, right? I've made a
Yeah.
lot of great friends, built some great relationships, and I get to hear my buddy tell his story. Even though I've heard it on my show, I get to hear my buddy tell his story to other people who have been in the same shoes he has. And I tell you what, man, the inspiration that both my wife and I got there yesterday, and the gratefulness and feeling so blessed that we had that opportunity to be there and be surrounded by a ton of amazing people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade that in for anything. And I've met a lot of people in my life throughout all my travels and my jobs and different things and all the networking I've done. However, here, since I've started the show and started speaking in the past 2 years, oh my gosh, the people that have come into my life just,
There's nothing like the
yeah,
recovery community, is there?
oh my gosh, nothing, right?
People working towards a common goal, man. Especially people that have come from really, really hard times.
Yeah, I will text you over when we get off the show. Our friend Manny Lopez, who was on our show, and he was big into the drugs and did some prison time and that, and he's a rapper.
Okay.
And I'm not one for rap music. And he all his songs are about recovery. And he sent me a song and it's called Thank You. And he calls himself SL Manny for like Salt Lake Manny, you know.
Okay.
And the lyrics in this, when I listened to it, I was like, holy crap. I freaking love this. And what he's doing, the thank you, what he's doing is he's telling the recovery community, thank you for who they are and thank you for helping him in his journey.
Yeah.
So I'll send it to you. I
I'll
know I've
check it
got it
out,
on
man.
text. Check it out and let me know what you think of it. We're doing an event on April 15th here in Sandy, Utah, and I asked him if he would allow me to play it at the end of my talk, and he goes, "Man, I'd be honored." So I want to play it because I want to tell the recovery community, thank you. Right? I didn't go to rehabs. I've not
Yeah.
been to detox. Yes, I lived an addictive life, which I just admitted to a couple months ago, thinking I wasn't. I was one of the lucky ones, I guess I could say, right? Where
Yeah.
it didn't take me really deep, deep. It took me deep enough to lose a job of 24 years.
That's pretty deep, man.
It is, but it's
Yeah.
not as deep as like the majority of the guests that have been on the show, like yourself. However, it's guests like yourself, Kirk, and Jimmy, and so many others that has helped me.
Well, it's like Theo Vaughn says,
Mm.
we've all had our own Vietnam, you know. We've all gone through our own thing, you know, whatever as bad as it's been through that you've been through. That's as, you know, it's the same for everybody. It's,
Yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
you. I got you. Well, it's hard to believe, Kirk, but man, we have shot through an hour just like
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's crazy. That and you're not nervous anymore, right?
Oh, a little bit, man. You
Are
know,
you
I had this
really?
whole plan in my head of what I was gonna say, and it sounded so eloquent and nice, and then, you know, it just kind of came out however it came out. So,
Well, the way it came out was the way it was meant to come out, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah, that's how I look at it because I do the same thing when I do public speaking. I have this whole picture of how it's going to go, and I start there, and then it seems like it's goes off to the left or to the right, and then to the left, and a little back and forth like this, and then back to the left. However, I get done, and I'm like, because well, I can't say always. The majority of the time, I will say a prayer before I do a talk and just ask God to direct me the way I need to go and get the message out that needs to be out. So I'm like, if that's how it went, that's exactly how it was supposed to go.
Yes, sir.
And just leave
Yeah.
it at that and don't beat myself up.
Yeah, well, it's easy for us to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What message would you like to leave with our listeners?
Man, I tell you, you know, if you're having a bad day, I try to remember some of my worst days, you know, like in Batman, man, the night is darkest just before dawn. You know, if you can get through a bad day, you know, there's probably a bright tunnel, you know, coming your way. There's no I'm sorry, Al.
No, you're fine, buddy. You're fine. Don't
Uh,
don't worry about any of it. Yeah.
I don't know where I was going there, man. But I mean, basically, pain is temporary unless you quit, man. So you just got to keep pushing forward. You got to stick with the meditations. You got to work the steps, man. And you know, that's about it, man.
Okay. That's a great message because and that goes with everyone. It's just not people who are in recovery or battling addiction, right? You
Yeah.
said it earlier, Kurt. Life is gonna hit us in the gut constantly, and as long as we allow ourselves to go through those emotions, because that's why God put those emotions in us. We're supposed to experience all these emotions. Don't listen to the outside world, because they say you're supposed to hide them because you're a wussy, right? Or you're weak if you
Don't show your
show, if
feelings.
you don't, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Show your feelings. The trick is don't stay there. Feel what you need to feel, brush yourself off, and move on. And that's how I just saw the message you just shared.
And I guess what I would say, Al, is if anyone out there that hasn't meditated, meditation has really changed my life. And I was told by a gentleman in AA, set a timer for 5 minutes when you wake up in the morning before you do anything. Sit at the table or wherever you want to sit and set that timer for 5 minutes with your eyes closed. And that's what's really started my journey from the last, year and a half, is with the 5 minute meditation. It started with that. So if anything is meditation, 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 man.
And I will second that, because that's what I do. I wake up early too. I'm an early riser anyway.
Yeah.
I wake up, I do my prayers. However, I'm not as consistent on the meditation as you are. It's a hit and miss. I also have a declaration that I read every morning, and it's
Affirmations, kind of, right?
yeah, kind
Yeah.
of like, it's like, I am not my past. I am not my mistakes. I am not my failures. I will continuously work on being a better me.
Yeah.
I am a magnet of miracles. I cannot do life alone. I have to do it with God and Jesus in my, basically in my backyard. Those are the type of things that I have down for my declaration. And it really helps me. And there's times I just read it to read it. And I realize, man, I just read it just to read it because I know I have to read it. I
Yeah.
really need to say those words, and I need to feel it, right?
Yeah.
We need to feel it. And meditating will do the same thing for us.
And meditation, man, it's like your mind's so many people say, I can't meditate. My mind wanders. I'm like, that's why you need to meditate, man.
Yeah.
And it's not, 80% of the time when I'm meditating, my mind's here, it's over here, it's over here, but it's just coming back to that breath, man.
Yeah.
And that it's a daily practice, because the life is the game, and meditation is the practice. So the more you practice, the better off you're going to be in the game.
Amen. Yeah, you
Yeah.
nailed it, right? Just
Yeah.
just just like the gym. Both you and I are 5 day a week gymners, I mean, we
Oh
love
yeah.
going to the gym. I'm there for about 2 hours. It's not all workout, it's cardio, it's workout, it's stretching, different
The
things
whole
like that.
nine, man.
It takes up the whole 2 hours. However, when you first start out, you start out with these little teeny tiny weights, right? Because you're just trying to get the motion, and you can't go heavy because you're going to be a sore SOB the next day, and you're going to be
Yeah.
sore even using the light ones. You have to gradually work your way up. And it's the same thing with anything, with the meditation or yoga or the day by day in the recovery, right? And
Yeah.
the breathing techniques, learning and paying attention to what your mind's telling you. I read a book called Conscious Creator, and in the book, they tell you to really start paying attention to what your brain's telling you. And it took me some time, but I realized the majority of my time, the majority of my thoughts going through my head were all negative.
Yeah.
Very seldom was it positive. It was negative crap coming at me left and right. And as I started recognizing it, I started learning how to shift it. Now, the subconscious mind has a way of tricking you to where you shift it. There's another negative thought just right behind it, that quick.
Yeah.
But as long as you recognize it, now I have gotten to where I can go longer periods before that negativity starts creeping back in. So it's just practice.
And that's the importance of listening to like your buddy that raps positive songs, positive shows, because you can watch a negative video, even if you're not thinking about it, your subconscious mind, you got all that negative words and whatever running in
Yeah.
in the back of your mind. So
Yeah. Amen. Well, Kirk, man, it has been an absolute pleasure having you, buddy. I mean, seriously, I could probably sit here and we could have another conversation for another hour.
yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope there comes a time in our lives that you and I can meet in person. Who knows, that time may come, I don't know. And I feel like I've known you for a very long time. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, me and Jimmy said that we want to come out to Salt Lake and come meet you and maybe do the podcast when you get a new studio, man.
Yeah,
So,
I would love that. I'd love it, and stay a couple days, and I'll take you guys on an amazing hike too, because I love hiking. So
oh
come in the
yeah.
summertime. Come in the
Okay.
summertime. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I didn't even get into that, man. I walk, there's been times where I walk 5, 10, 20 miles a day just to
Holy
walk,
cow.
man. Leave the phone at home and just, whoo, let's
Just
go.
go.
Yeah, yes, sir. Get that sun
Yeah.
and
Yeah, the mountains here, the Wasatch Front, I mean, within about a half hour, you can be about 10,000 feet up,
yeah,
9,000 feet, and it's my church. That's why the majority of my hikes are on Sundays. It's my church.
it's a
And I,
spiritual experience, man.
oh
Mother
my
Gaia,
God.
man. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. What better church, right? A man didn't build the church that I go to.
yeah.
God himself built that, right? He's the one that
Your
rose the
body's the
mountain.
temple.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, all right, buddy. Well, thank you. Do not sign off when we stop recording because we'll chat just a little bit more. But again, thank you, Kirk, for being here with us, man. Just
Hey,
greatly appreciate it.
thanks, Al. I appreciate it, man. You have a good one.
All right, you too. Hey, guys, thank you for tuning in to the Other Side of Addiction podcast, man. We couldn't do this without all our listeners. And Resilience Talk Network will be back. We are definitely working hard on finding us a new studio, a new location. And we're hoping to be back bigger and better than what we were before. And thank you to all our many, many sponsors. Man, we couldn't do this without you guys. You guys are the ones that helped to start this. And same with all our guests and our guest co-hosts. Just want to say thank you. We appreciate all you guys. And remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.